Now, getting your first or your next degree is often the answer to progress in your career, but then you have the degree, you did all the hard work, and crickets, you can't actually get into the industry, or you can't get to this next level where you want to be. If that sounds familiar, then you are not alone. And today we are joined by somebody who's actually made that her calling and her profession. We are joined by Dr. Nguyen, who actually helps clinical researchers to get into the industry. And I'm honestly super curious how she has gotten into this industry, how she created an economy of one, and also how she actually helps her clients. So with no further ado, here's my interview with Sue Nguyen. Sue, thank you so much for being here.
I love to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Honestly, I'm excited. We met a few months ago now at a conference. In-person conferences are back, and we connected, and I was just fascinated with what you do. Now, you have got not one, but 2 doctorates. Incredible to start with, but none of the doctorates are actually in career or leadership or training. However, you have created an incredible company, Clue Clinicals, that helps academics to make the transition into the industry. I'm super curious, how did you end up where you are right now?
The story started a long time ago in terms of me being in clinical research. So when I was 9 years old, my grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was the seed of my fascination with medical research, especially genetics. So I spent the next years of my life just questioning myself when I was in school: how did my grandma got sick, and how can I improve her health outcome? So when I migrated to Australia, I actually pursued that career path. She unfortunately passed away when I was 16, and as part of my so-called desire to keep her legacy alive, I actually wanted to dedicate the rest of my life working on clinical research, and that's how I got into this industry to begin with. So I spent over a decade working on cancer genetics research in particular, and then I transitioned into clinical research or clinical trials. So clinical trials is something that many people may have been more exposed to during the pandemic because of the COVID vaccine. So this is the first opportunity that the patients and the general public have access to all the medical innovations and discoveries that happened back in the lab decades before it actually got to the stage where humans are exposed to these products. So it's part of the drug development pathway that is essential. So I was working in the industry for a number of years when I was contacted by my colleagues, my students in the past, people that I supervised in academia. How could they get into this industry? And that's when I realized that it's not that easy for many people to get in. So I was one of the fortunate few to have gotten in without any or without much struggle. I did have some challenges, but it's not as struggle or as much of a struggle as they had. So I started to investigate as usual, because that's kind of my go-to, a problem solver. So I just wanted to understand, how is it possible that for some people it's easier and for others it's not? And so I identified some key issues by interviewing a lot of my colleagues, a lot of the people that I worked with in the industry. How did they get into this industry to begin with? And that's when I composed a list of key gaps in terms of skills and knowledge that are mandatory for an individual to transition. So that's when I started to do a bit more sort of concrete sort of research into how I can create something to help these people. Because when I was working, it was very hard for me to actually dedicate so much time and effort, because I was flying a lot. I was doing a lot of, after hours work. So that workload alone could not afford me to help these people that I wanted to help. And so when I decided to create Clue Clinical, it was actually about 3 years after I thought of helping these individuals, because I knew that there's something that I needed to do. And I felt that this is my calling to help them when I successfully transitioned and they couldn't. And I knew that the fact that more than one individual's contacted me, it could be something that other people will also benefit from it. And during the pandemic, actually, we decided to open Clue Clinical. And of course, it's not easy to start a business. And especially during the pandemic, we couldn't go out, we couldn't do anything. But that was the perfect opportunity for us to focus on the essential pathway to be able to help these individuals. So we created an industry bridging program that is comprehensive, and we partnered with career coaches, leadership coaches, and people who are experts in their field to specifically address the specific gaps that I identified during my research.
Oh, that's fascinating, because you're the perfect example of creating an economy of one by simply listening to feedback and also turn a mess into a message. Because clearly, if there's one request or demand, and then there's two, and then there's three, there is actually some validation behind it. Now, what I'm really curious is, it used to be that you have a degree, you've got knowledge, and that was the guarantee to get a career, to be future-proof. And nowadays, it isn't the case anymore, especially in your field. You're working with highly skilled, highly educated professionals, and PhDs, doctorates, and they still can't get into the industry. What exactly is the issue? Why they can't actually make this jump from academia to industry?
It's an excellent question. Actually, it's the question that I get asked the most. So the issue with this particular industry, the pharmaceutical and clinical research industry that I'm in, is that there are international rules and regulations that the industry as a whole has to adhere to. So per good clinical practice, an individual who can or should be hired in this industry should be trained, knowledgeable, and has experience. So that doesn't fit a graduate or someone who transitions from a different, even though related industry, into this industry. But there are ways to get around this, because the problem with the recruitment I found was that they focus so much on the experience piece and not enough on the competence piece. So in this industry, experience is crucial. However, from what I had experienced when I was working in the industry, was competence and passion are two related and complementary, if not essential, aspects to success in this particular industry. So I capitalize on that knowledge from the interviews that I conducted with the many stakeholders that I had interacted with, and created something that allows naive or industry naive individuals to overcome that catch-22 barrier. Because if you are not given the opportunity to gain experience, how do you get that experience? So for us, it's more about creating an innovative solution that is relevant for the industry, that is relevant to the employer, and help the students actually gain valuable competence to add value to the employer that takes the risk to hire someone who doesn't have the experience. So our industry bridging program is all about providing them with the comprehensive list of skill sets and knowledge that are essential for that particular job. So it's a job specific program. So it's not the same for every job, because every job requires different skill sets, different knowledge. So we develop each individual program individually for that specific job. And that allows the employer to be more assured that the individual that they're hiring through our program actually have been taught all the things that they need to do, and they can be a valuable asset even though they don't have that experience.
Oh, I love this approach, because they experience and education, it's a chicken and egg. We are also working with, say graduates, for example, and they are not able to get into the industry because there's always the 2 years experience required. But if you have never been exposed to it, how can you get the 2 years? And I love that you're working on actually building the competencies for the roles, that you've got some also confidence in the skill set and the ability to apply what you've learned in a setting, even though it might not be commercial, meaning you haven't necessarily been paid for it, but you still have worked on a project that's relevant, and then you can communicate it.
Exactly. So that's the key. That's the second key piece of the industry bridging program. So besides having the knowledge and skills for that specific role, you need to also be able to communicate it. So what we found, a lot of these academics, and even so, most of our trainees are highly skilled individuals, PhD grads, postdoctoral fellows, actually medical doctors, and even specialists who have a desire to be in this industry, but they just haven't yet overcome that gap that I spoke to earlier about. But because they have the passion, and clearly they are highly capable, intelligent individuals, it's not hard to educate these people on the knowledge and skills. But now we need to also coach them. So that's why we hire experienced coaches to be able to allow them to understand a bit about who they are and understand how they can actually communicate their value to prospective employers. Because the biggest struggle for a lot of these highly intelligent individuals out there is that they rely too much on their IQ, but not enough on their EQ, if at all. So the lack that I found in terms of the academic training is that they focus too much on technical aspects and not enough on soft skills. And that's what we provide in this particular program.
You're so spot on. Even though it might be very relevant for the clinical space, I find it also, it's quite universal also in other technical professions. So if you think software engineering or data analytics, everyone is focusing on the technical skills. And at the beginning, that actually got us the job because there were not that many qualified people. But nowadays, there are a lot more qualified people, and we can also educate ourselves with open universities. We can do a PhD if we wanted to. It's not regulated anymore from how many spots we've got. So it's a lot more competitive. So I love that your focus is on soft skills and also enabling your academics to communicate their value, because that goes beyond their specialization. That also helps them then to transition or to pivot or to get into a different type of research.
Yes, so the goal that we have here is not just about transitioning these highly competent, highly intelligent individuals into an entry-level role. And that's actually something that we deliberately integrated into this program from the very beginning. And that's the reason why we partner with leadership coaches. So what that means is we instill in this program and instill in them the ability to see themselves as the next future industry leader, because I see the potential in these individuals to add enormous value to this industry, so that they can see that it's not just because they haven't got the experience to get into this industry, but because they embody that leadership quality within themselves. They just need someone who believes in them and who gives them that support network and that mentorship that they need to be able to recognize their own value and worth. So an example that I can give is a couple of our trainees so far have actually got promotions within about 6 months of getting a job in the industry. And that is incredible when you consider the rate of promotion in this industry is about 2 years. So they literally fast-tracked their career pathway so incredibly fast compared to the generic pathway that many other people have to go through, just because they have that skill set that we have coached them throughout the program, and they now understand the value that they can create. But it also goes for the industry employers who have hired these individuals. They now realize that there's a lot of talent out there, and just because they didn't have the relevant experience at the outset, it doesn't mean that they are not competent. So once that they have acquired the minimum requirement for them to be able to fulfill the job, they can see that there's huge potential for these individuals to be the next manager, the next director. And that's what we love about this program. We're so passionate about helping these individuals to succeed, because we do see the next manager, the next CEO in all of these individuals we help.
Absolutely, because in the end, they trust your candidates and your talents, because they are able to build a connection and a relationship beyond the credentials. They're able to communicate, and they're able to speak somebody else's language and show this emotion. And obviously it starts with trusting themselves that they're capable to do it. I'm really curious about your own journey, because you didn't necessarily come from this background, and then you had to trust yourself that you make this work. You're going from a highly paid, highly recognized role and very safe role to running your own business. What made you trust in yourself, in your own journey, that you will make it work?
It's a very good question. It's something that I constantly ask myself. To tell you the truth, it's a self-discovery journey. But there are two things that I can share that were pivotal to my journey. So the first one is my faith. So I am a Christian. So I do genuinely believe that this is my calling. So that is something that I have had in me for as long as I can remember, but it's also the fact that I believe I wasn't created just to exist. I was created to create a legacy. You know, I was blessed to bless others. So when I recognized that I had the ability to make a huge impact in some people's lives, I wanted to be able to do something to help them. It's more about how. So the why is already there. I know I'm very determined to help, and I'm determined to do something, but it's just about the how. So that's where the second secret comes in, and that is my family. So my family has been a huge pillar of foundation behind the success, because they believed in me. Even though I was trained as a cancer geneticist, I knew nothing about that, business or building a company. But my husband, fortunately, was trained in business and economics. So he was instrumental in the creation of this business and helping me in understanding every legality aspect behind all of this, to be able to make the foundation first concrete before we move on to the next. And he also coached me on how to create a product that is lean but sufficient to be able to help these individuals in a tangible manner so that they can succeed. So the takeaway here is believing in yourself, regardless of what industry or what expertise you've developed over the years, because I've spent over 20 years learning, training and working in a completely different field. But because I had a desire to help people, and I had a desire to create a legacy that can actually last beyond my lifetime, I wanted to be able to, number one, understand whether or not the thing that I'm doing here on, during my lifetime on Earth can actually help the next generation as well. And that drives me every single day to do things in a different manner, to be able to help individuals who can't help themselves. So that self-awareness and self-determination is the key in my success. But not having the support network behind you is not going to, you're going to struggle more. So for me, having that support network behind me is one of those things that I couldn't do without.
I love your story for so many reasons, because I do believe that a lot of us have this calling and this urge to do more, to make a bigger impact, to step up. But then fear comes in. But how do I make this work? And if things go pear-shaped, and if I fail, as it's very ego-driven in the end, whereas you are like, okay, I recognize it, I hear it, I'm onto it. So what's next? And you took the leap of faith, and then also that you weren't shy to ask for help, because as you said, you didn't do it before. So nobody would expect you to just run a business overnight, figuring things out. And again, so many are worried that they are seen as not competent enough, or that somebody looks at them from a, why are you asking me that, you don't know anything angle, whereas people want to genuinely help. And simply asking the right person who has got experience there helps you to fast track your journey. So I love that you're so honest about what actually got you there. So yes, it was your own calling, but at the same time you had support to get you there. And I know this is literally just the beginning of where you want to take it. What is your legacy business? Where do you want to take clinical research now?
I love that question because it's so timely. The truth is, you are right. This is only the beginning. We actually have a very big plan for Clue Clinical, and I'll keep part of that plan a mystery because I want to see how it unfolds. But the next step for Clue Clinical is actually to expand our services to be able to help the greater health economy. So right now, the demographic that we help are the graduates, the STEM graduates, health graduates, and higher degree research students, as well as other transitioning professionals. But we want to be able to help the local economies across the regions in Australia. And we have identified this particular niche or gap a long time ago. I just didn't know how to actually navigate around this particular issue, simply because we were living in metropolitan cities. Well, actually, I was born in Ho Chi Minh City. I lived in Melbourne. I lived in Brisbane. So I never knew anything about regional, but I knew that in Australia alone, over a third of the population reside outside of the metropolitan or the greater capital cities. So I wanted to be able to democratize healthcare. I knew that there were issues with accessing healthcare outside of the main cities, but I didn't know how because I didn't understand what the problem was. So we decided to relocate to regional about a year ago so that we can be on site, we can be around and amongst the people who we want to help and support. We did a lot of background research, traveling around the country, especially in regional, just to understand not just the location, the geography, but also how the systems work around this place. So this is the next step, is for us to build that capacity within these local regional areas in the clinical research space, because that is my passion. I want to be able to improve patient outcome from the perspective of creating an infrastructure and the foundation that support all the innovations and the medical discoveries that are happening around, because I think that workforce and skills and talents underpin all successes in all service-based industries, including medical technologies and innovations. So we want to be able to create that foundation for all local economies across Australia and hopefully in the future internationally.
Oh my God, I love everything about it. And you're such a great testimony of simply learning things that you don't know yet. Like you don't know yet how to expand and how to roll it out to other industries, but it's a natural progression when you start, and you can only progress if you actually make those little steps. And you do that all the time, and you've made such a big career pivot and build now a business around it. So honestly, I'm super excited for what's next. I know that you definitely leave a legacy behind you. Now, where is the best place to stay in touch with you, learn more about you, and how can everyone work with you?
So we have a website, so www.clueclinical.com. You can go on this website to find out what programs we have currently available. But keep in mind, our programs evolve over time, and we're currently building our new website in the background to be able to encapsulate the future or the next step in our journey. We are all about connecting with people, so you'll find me floating around schools, universities, different cities, meeting with people, connecting with people at cafes. So for example, next week I'll be in Brisbane. So we will be able to be contacted by email. So there's a contact us page. There's an office number that you can connect with the office staff. But I'm also contacted or able to be connected via LinkedIn. We have a Facebook and LinkedIn page for our company sort of updates as well. So we're around.
Excellent. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes, obviously, to make it easier for everyone. But I highly recommend anyone who is in this academic industry to connect with you and learn more how your programs can help. Because honestly, if you have the capability and the knowledge, you want to share it, you want to make an impact. And that comes down to communication and connection with others. So Sue, thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you so much for being here. And again, good luck with what's ahead for you.
Thank you so much, Petra. Likewise, I love what you're doing, and the things that you have created is phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.